So Mr. Steve is working on technical difficulty here. Is that what we're doing?
I don't know what he's doing down there.
Oh, what's going on?
Huh?
What am I doing wrong?
I'm looking for your video.
You have
Turn
a
your video
camera?
on.
Oh, that's right. I forgot to hit that button. I thought it was on.
Oh, you silly goose.
You silly goose, you.
Okay, there we go.
All right, so we're recording, right, Dave? You said we were good?
We're going for all. Oh, there he is.
So let's start this thing. Hey, folks, welcome to the Get Off Our Lawn show. My name is Dave, son of Garth, coming to you from Pennsylvania, over here near Pittsburgh. With me is my co-host, as usual. He's the dark side of the moon. He's the dark side of my moon. He's the toys in my attic. He's the pretzel to my logic.
He's the Steely to my Dan, right?
And what you don't know is Dave once was first chair, saxophone first chair in a Styx tribute band called Stinks.
That stinks.
See? You get it. Hey, so we have a very special guest with us today. I'm so excited about this. We got Mr. Steve Lisi with us. This is so great.
Hello, everyone. Very good, very good.
Steve, it's so good to see you.
It's good to be seen.
It's good to be seen.
It's good to be seen now. And you thought you were on camera this whole time, and now we have you.
Well, you know, I like to play hard to get, you know.
Playing hard to get.
That was great.
So you guys are getting ready for a nor'easter up there, huh? Or are you going to get
ours? Ours is we're on the back end of it right now here. We had snow all day today.
Oh,
snow all day today.
Yesterday, Easter was gorgeous. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was nice. And then today was crappy and rainy and sleety and snowy and windy.
Yep. Oh, it is, I don't know, low 50s, high 40s today here and just raining.
Oh.
Steve, you may or may not know I'm in Raleigh.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Steve, where are you at?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta.
Hence the Atlanta Braves.
Yes, I see that now. I can honestly say that's one of my least favorite airports in the entire globe.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Are you in charge of that? Who do you call?
Yeah. You get that fixed, will you, man?
I never have a problem going through it.
Oh my Lord. I've never had to run so much at an airport in my life as that place.
I was going to say that's either the end point or the start point for you. That's probably why.
Oh,
the people that fly through usually have to go from terminal A to terminal triple Z.
And you got to be you got to be
20 minutes.
And you got to be a sprint runner.
Yeah. And your departing flight is momentarily, right? Boarding.
Yeah. So, Steve, what we've been doing, I don't know if you watched any of our previous podcasts.
Yes.
So we're just curious as to what's been going on since you walked off of Volant Field the day we graduated. Just kind of update the folks what's been going on in your life. And then we'll get to the fun stuff and ask silly questions and bring back memories and blah, blah, blah.
Okay. Well, I stayed in Dryden and went to the infamous TC3. And I was originally accepted at Arizona State. And I was going to move out there to Phoenix and live with my aunt and uncle. But as you know, everything sounds good, or my dad would say, looks good on paper. But when it comes down to it, it all fell apart and they didn't want me to live there with them and so on and so forth. So I was scrambling and had to go to TC3.
Gotcha.
And went to TC3 for 2 semesters and had to get away, actually moved to Albany to stay with my grandmother and help her, and went to Hudson Valley Community College. Things health-wise didn't get very much better, so we moved back to Dryden. Well, also my grandmother wasn't doing well, and going to Hudson Valley, I was a minority. I'm driving around a Plymouth Scamp, and yeah, and my college mates are driving Camaros and Firebirds. They're all from New York City, and spending in one night partying what I would spend in a month.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was not and have not ever been in the drugs scene. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was a major issue there in Albany.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget this one professor walked in. We were there, I'm there in my polo shirt and khaki pants, as usual. And about 20 minutes later, this guy comes walking in with boots and jeans with holes in them and a flannel shirt, long, straggly hair, and says, "Is this Jim Slattery's Comp 101?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Good." Slams his book down on the desk and says, "I'm Jim Slattery." I'm like,
The
"What?"
instructor is in.
Yeah, I'm like, "You have got to be kidding me." So he says, "Your assignment is to write an essay, 3 pages of what you did over the summer, and don't use the word you or your, or you'll get an F." Okay, class dismissed, and walked out. And I'm like, huh? So needless to say, it was a very difficult semester.
What did you get on the paper?
Oh, I did well. I got an A on it. I made sure I didn't use the you or your.
There you go.
So I started to party out with them every once in a while. Across the street, there was a bar called the Country Grove. And I went over there one night and they were playing this game. I can't remember what it was, but you would take a stove match and light it, one of those wooden ones.
Yep.
And lay it on your back side of your forearm and let it burn down. And whoever couldn't let it stay there the longest had the drink, So I'm like, what the hell? These people are coming into class with all these burn marks on their arms. I'm like, I got to get the hell out of this place. So I transferred back to TC3.
Mhm.
And if you remember, when I was class president for the first 3 years before there was the overthrow of Phil Bakke and Sherry Case,
Mhm.
and I think Stephen Pleward had something to do with the sign of the Zorro on the posters.
We heard something about that. Yeah.
You were talking about that, yes.
And but I always said that my dream was to take us to Walt Disney World for our senior class trip.
Mhm.
And we were able to fulfill that fantasy. And when I was at Walt Disney World, I said, man, I would love to work here someday. And as it turns out, when I went back to TC3 after the first semester in Albany, I'm sitting in the library, and I was kind of depressed because I was on academic probation, because I was living at home and my dad was forcing me to go to work for his company, and I didn't want to work there because I thought they'd always say the only reason why you're working here is because of your dad.
Yep. I can appreciate that. What did your dad do? What did your dad do?
He worked for Faye's Drug Company.
Okay.
So I was sitting there, and all of a sudden they come in and put a poster up, and it said, "Guess who's coming to campus? Mickey Mouse." And I'm like, what? So I read it, and it was a co-op program, and it said you had to talk to your academic advisor. So I went and talked to Mr. Levengood, and I'm like, tell me about this program. And he says, well, it goes by your grade point average and your professor recommendations. I said, well, I'm screwed. I'm on academic probation. He says, no. He says, we all know why, you're on academic probation. He said, give it a try. Let's see. So I did. 30 students signed up. TC3 picked 15, and Disney came and interviewed us. And of the 15, they chose 5, and I was one of the 5.
Very nice.
Wow.
And I said, if I get accepted into this program, I'll finish college. If I don't, I quit. So I was accepted, and my mom and dad were all excited, and I was to go down fall of '82.
Okay.
So September, I can't remember the date, I went down to Florida, drove down with Jack Lapino, in fact,
Oh,
Oh my
wow.
gosh. Okay.
He was my co-pilot, and then he took Greyhound back. And so I went down. Oh no, that's when I moved down there. I'm sorry, back up. So I went down there on the college program, and I actually drove down with my neighbor. Jack went down with me when I moved down. Sorry.
Okay.
And I was there from September until January 12th, I think it was.
Okay.
And it was so fun opening up Epcot Center, being part of that whole infrastructure beginning, and then working as it opened. But I was stationed at the Polynesian Hotel.
Yep.
And part of the co-op program was I had to pay for my semester and use up all of my electives. And we had to go to once a week classes at Disney Management, and then we had to write a paper. And I was so infatuated with having the chance of working there because I had, stated it when I was in high school. And I ended up getting the nickname Walt Jr. because I knew everything about Walt Disney World at the time. And
Wow.
wrote a paper and got a 4.0 for the 12 credits. First
Nice.
time ever.
Wow.
So
And
I
that was
went,
before the internet.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you find that stuff out? Right.
I just put myself in everybody's office and just dove deep into all of the information they had with the opening of Epcot. In fact, while I was down there, PM Magazine came down from Syracuse and interviewed me there on Main Street. So that was pretty cool. I'll have to send you that video. My parents.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Send us a link.
What's that?
Send us a link.
Okay, sure. So then I came back in January and I went to Mr. Levengood and I said, how the hell do I get out of here on graduation? So he says, well, I don't think they're going to let you take more than 12 credits because you're on academic probation, but let's ask. So we did, we got permission. I took 16 hours, credit hours, and all I did was work, school, and sleep.
Yep.
From January until May, and graduated. And then in August, moved back to Florida. And that's when Jack rode down with me. And he took the Greyhound back. And I stayed there and moved up quickly through the company. I worked in merchandise. Then I worked in finance. Then I went back to merchandise. Then I went into space and product planning. Then I went into buying and then into liquidation. So,
Okay.
did the whole gamut. I was there 15 years.
At the Disney World.
Correct.
Okay.
So the final 15th year was what year?
I think it was 1998, I think. Something like that.
Okay.
Then from there, I went to Planet Hollywood and traveled the world. I was the assistant director of merchandising and went, my responsibility was Europe, Asia, and Mexico. And I was the liaison to all of the franchisees that would buy a Planet Hollywood franchise. I can't remember her name now. Oh yeah, Gina Davis. So here I am in London, and we had already shipped the leather jackets and everything to Helsinki, where she had bought a franchise. And I was busier than hell. And one of the associates said, hey, the owner of Helsinki wants to talk to you. And I said, tell them I already shipped the jackets. They should be there, check with the freight forwarder. I haven't got time to talk to them. And the guy says, it's Gina Davis. And I'm like, who the hell's Gina Davis?
And this is Gina Davis, the actress, no doubt.
Yes.
Yes, not Gina Davis, the janitor, Gina Davis, the actress. Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
So that was just my little drive to New York background of really not knowing who all these big famous people were.
Right.
Like I knew Bruce
Right.
Willis, I knew Drew Barrymore, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, but Gina Davis just didn't click.
Didn't click.
Well, Earth girls are easy, right? And
Right,
so
Earth girls are easy. That's right.
So when the guy refreshed my memory, I was like, oh, okay, I'll take that call.
Good move. Good move.
okay. So what was the story with the jackets then?
Well, every grand opening, all of the celebrities get a Planet Hollywood, like a Letterman
Riding
jacket.
high school TZ3
Yes.
leather
They
jacket.
get
right?
they get a jacket from the Lion's Den.
That's right. Oh, Mrs. Hayford would be thrilled, right? No, it's a commemorative jacket that says grand opening and the date on it and the city drop on it. So, we typically had to have about 30 specially made jackets for the grand opening team. And, this was in the early ages of FedEx and all of that and trying to track things down. But they were on their way. They only had gone from London to Helsinki, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And, when you're working internationally like that, you become very resilient to people's needs, because I know it's on its way and stuff and it takes time. And it's just like blasé to me, but everybody else is, all in an uproar.
They're excited, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So okay, so I'm curious, what was the deal that you left? Why'd you leave Disney and go to Planet Hollywood?
It's a complicated story. To summarize it, my direct report was a good old boy where he had never gone to college and he started out at Disney and worked his way up, but he was very street smart. And my work partner, Jim, and his wife was a buyer. And Jim was brought into the company for his financial experience. And Jean Jackson, who was our first female executive vice president of merchandise, came in and handpicked Jim, myself, and my manager, which we won't mention his name, protect the innocent. And Jim got really sick of him because Jim worked directly with him. I was more over the operations and the logistics of the department. Jim was over the finance and the goodwill stuff. And our manager was involved with obtaining over-purchased product or produced product from our vendors. And because Gene came in and found out that we had over $3 million overbought of merchandise. When the buyers, they're creative people, for like Little Mermaid, they have a t-shirt, a hat, a cup, all these different silhouettes, we call them. And then they go to Lion King and they make the same thing. So the Little Mermaid stuff gets pushed to the back. Then Aladdin comes out. So Lion King and Little Mermaid get pushed back.
Yep.
So this was going on and on and on. And Gene's like, we got to get rid of this product. So we created these liquidation stores where we would sell it at just above cost. And the guest would be ecstatic about it. Mm. Then we found out that vendors, let's say we're going to make the first thing we discovered was ties. So it costs just as much to make 20,000 neckties as it does 10,000. So a vendor would think, oh, well, I'm going to be the glory boy and I'm going to make 20,000 ties. So when Disney reorders, we can just ship them.
Ship them and be done.
Yep. Right. Well, Disney was on the fast track of changing artwork and designs and stuff like that. And they would never reorder that style. They would do a different style. So eventually the vendor calls up and says, hey, buyer, you need to take these 10,000 ties. And the buyer says, what?
Why do I have 10,000 extra ties?
Yeah, right. So we would show them on the back of the purchase order that you only have the rights to make within 5% over or short of the original order amount because it's a licensed product. So they turned it over to my director and myself and Jim, and we would say, okay, we'll buy those ties. Let's say Disney was buying them for $5 and selling them for $35. We're going to buy them for $1. Mm-hmm. And the vendor is like, no way, we can't afford that. And I'd say, either give them to us for $1 or send us videotape documentation that they've been destroyed
Ooh,
because it's our property.
right.
Okay, I guess it's better to get $1 than nothing. So then we would put them in the character warehouse and sell them for $12 and make, huge profit.
Yep.
Then the stuff that was sent from the park that was discontinued, like I said, from different programs, when it would get down to broken sizes, we would then box it up and send it to different charities and get the tax write-off and ship it away and get all kinds of goodwill for it. So fast forward, Jim finally gets tired of our director and quits. And I said, well, Jim, you can do that. Your wife still works there. You still get the great benefits. I'm young, single. I can't do that. So then I started working directly with the director. And I think within about a month, I figured out that Jim was right. So I was finishing up a project for expansion of these character warehouses. And I went to my director and I showed it to him and had all the plans and all the justification and the return on investment and so on and so forth. And he starts arguing with me. And I was like, well, all right, so what do you suggest? Well, I don't know, but that isn't right. And that can't happen. I'm like, huh? And I'm the type of person that I can have an argument with you and we can agree to disagree, but I get really pissed off if someone's arguing with me and can't substantiate why they're disagreeing with me.
Yeah, just
Right.
arguing. Yeah.
Right. So I said, you know what? I'm on vacation effective immediately before I say something I'm sorry for. So I get up and left. It was a Friday night. And Sunday, I decided I was going to fly to California and meet up with my friends from Disneyland. So I went out there, had a great vacation. Everything was super. Came home Monday, completely forgot about, the argument and whatever. Go in, I sit down, we're talking, and he's like, yeah, da, 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 da. And about at the end of our hour meeting, he says, oh, and he hands me a stack of paperwork and says, you got to take care of this stuff for me. Okay. So I go back to my office and about 4 o'clock, I get down to my project. He didn't put on the cover letter. Steve and I did this. Steve did this, nothing. He said, this is my proposal for new expansion, and gave it to our new senior VP, Gene.
This is the one he didn't like before. This is the thing he did not like at all.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't even think I touched the ground walking down to my VP's office. I was so freaking mad.
Yeah.
And I go in and I slam the door and I said, I've had it. I quit. I'm not covering for him anymore. And he's like, whoa, what's going on? So I just had a mind dump with him. I said the sexual harassment thing that he's doing, the wheeling dealing he's doing, my project, blah, blah. He's like, he looks at my project and he says, Steve, everybody knows that he is not capable of this type of analytical work and presentation.
Yeah.
And I said, I know that, and you know that, but Gene doesn't know that. And I'm not going to get him promoted on my coattails.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, just calm down. He says, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. So I was like, okay. So I started sending out resumes and companies were wanting me everywhere. 15 years of experience with Disney.
Yep.
But they all wanted me to move. And I'm like, no, I don't want to move. So Planet Hollywood was building a new structure there at downtown Disney. I don't know if you guys have seen it, the big globe down there.
Yep.
And they wanted me. So I was like, okay, because the director of Planet Hollywood merchandising was expecting a child and didn't want to travel, and it was too much for her. They were expanding like crazy. So they created a position for me. And I was like, okay. So interviewed, was offered the job, went back to Disney and said to my boss that I hated, I said, I built a great foundation here and it's time for me to move on and blah, 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 blah,
Mm-hmm.
And because this was like 6 or 8 months later. And he's like, oh, okay, that's great. And but when Jean found out, she's like, no. I gave them a month's notice and they said, no, you got to stay 2 months because we don't have anybody to replace you. Jim is gone, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, they've created this position for me. And Gene said, what's it going to take? And I said,
Love those words. Love those words.
yeah, I said, I don't know. So she says, well, I pretty much think that Planet Hollywood will do whatever you ask or whatever we ask, because they're partners with us or participants. And they're not going to want to piss us off. So I go back to, well, that's true, because when I was a buyer with Disney, they would throw their weight around.
Yep.
So I went back to Tina at Planet and I said, hey, Tina, they can't let me go for 2 months because there's no one to replace me. And Tina's like, oh, that's okay. No worries. This is a newly created position. We've done without it until now. We can wait another month. I was like, okay. So I went back to Gene and I said, well, I understand we're doing some reorganization here, and I want to keep my main gate pass and my medical insurance as if I was retiring. And she said, okay. So she signed off on it, and I stayed for a month and did my job.
There you go.
Wow.
And 3 months later, after I was at Planet, my director was let go with no package. He'd been there 25 years. And
The
I
guy you
felt
didn't like at Disney.
right.
Yep.
Well, they figured out after I was gone and Jim was gone that he didn't know shit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
And they let him go. And I felt bad when he called me because he wanted a job. And I said, geez, no, we don't have anything available. And I'm thinking, you got to be fucking kidding me if I'm, oops, got censor that.
Yep. Okay.
Wow. That's a lot of nerve.
Yeah. So I worked there for 5 years till they went bankrupt.
Mhm.
And while I was there, we were implementing a new purchase order management, inventory management, and warehouse management system, which I had done at Disney with our Merlin system. That's what our director was leaning on Jim and I about, because computers were foreign to him.
There you go.
He didn't want to learn it, so he leaned on us to teach him everything, and then do everything.
Mhm.
And when we were gone, he couldn't do it.
Right.
So, uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Yep.
So I was on the task force at Planet, and there was rumblings that they were going to go bankrupt, and that's a whole different episode that we could talk about. But the bottom line is ego really ruins a company.
Gotcha.
So I said, well, you aren't supposed to even be talking to me because there's a non-compete clause with you guys. And he said, what do you care? You're going to end up without a job soon. So the CFO went to my church, and I saw him that next Sunday. And I went to him and I said, hey, Tom, so-and-so was talking to me from JDA Software, and they want me to come to work for them. And I told him I couldn't talk to him because of our non-compete. And he said, I don't care. He says, we're all going to end up without a job in a couple of months. He says, what do I need to do for you? I said, just sign the non-compete letter that I can talk to them. Okay, come to my office Monday morning and I'll sign it for you. So he did. I went down and gave it to the project manager for JDA. Thursday, they flew me to Atlanta for an interview. And Monday, they called me and offered me a job as a senior business analyst and working out of my home in Orlando.
Wow.
So I was excited about that. It was basically doing analytical work, which I had already done and everything, and was partnered with the project manager. And we had 3 projects going in Florida. Tires Plus out of Tampa, and Sports Authority in Miami or Deerfield, and the PGA Tour in Pontevedra. So the way they sold me to these 3 clients was they wouldn't have to travel back and forth from Atlanta. I could drive to their places and their, travel expense would be lower. And just when I would have to go to Atlanta for our team meeting once a month, they would just pay for that. Okay. So I was doing those 3 projects. The first one was in Tampa with Tires Plus, and that was their Y2K project. Scared the bejesus out of me.
Yeah.
They were going from their legacy system
Oh my
to Y2K compliant, which we know ended up being a fiasco.
Indeed.
But I was on pins and needles, and that was a fun job. I found out a lot of things, being a consultant, learning about companies, turning them inside out. A couple of them were embarrassing. A couple of examples were, one, I was reviewing their legacy system where all their stores were against what we had. And there was one store, I was like, where is this store? And I couldn't find it. So I went to the project manager with them, and he's like, that isn't one of our stores. I said, well, you've been paying utilities and cable and phone for this location for the last 10 years. So we started doing some research, and it was the accounts payable manager's house. And she had set her house up as a store, and they were paying the utilities for it.
Nice.
Wow, what a sweet gig.
Yeah, so they walked her out in handcuffs. I felt guilty about that, but I was like, I just uncovered it. You know, I'm comparing their store list with the
right. I'm trying to find the store.
Yeah.
Then another one was this location would make sales projection every day. I'm like, there is no way a store can make sales projections every day. So I started researching it, and they were paid on bonus by hitting sales projections and whatnot. And I found that the manager was running end of day on his register whenever he would hit the goal. So if his goal was set at 1 o'clock or reached at 1 o'clock, he'd run end of day.
That was the end of day. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he could add the next 4 hours or 6 hours to the next day, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. Then he also wasn't making deposits every day. He was making deposits once a week. So either he could be using that money for gambling, or possibly he could get robbed, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, they terminated him too. So they were calling me the iron or the hanging judge, because I was finding all this stuff.
The analytical sniper.
Well, you know, it's like you can't fix stupid.
Yeah.
True.
Wow. So I did that for 5 years, and they did some reorganization. I was laid off, and I went to work for the Catholic Church here in Atlanta for a couple of years, and then JDA called me back, and I worked for them for another 5 years till they reorganized again.
Yep.
And was laid off. And then I went to work for the Container Store as the Southeastern region inventory coordinator. So I had 5 stores. I was coordinating inventory and facilities with them.
Mm-hmm.
Worked there for 11 years and got tired of that. Well, actually, one of the managers there, when he came in new, he said, you know, he had a get to know you session, just sitting down, talking to us and saying, you know, why are you here? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And after I talked with him, he's like, I don't mean to be rude, but what the hell are you doing here? And I said, well, I got tired of traveling all the time as a with Planet Hollywood, and then with JDA Software and 9/11 and all that stuff. I just found a job here, and it was comfortable, dialed back my life, and, you know, everything's great. And he said, would you ever be a project manager again? And I said, hell yeah, if I didn't have to travel. So he was only with us like 4 months, and he left and went to Macy's, and we stayed in contact, go out for drinks every once in a while. And about 9 months later, he called me and says, hey, would you like to be a project manager for Macy's? And I said, yeah, talk to me. So I went over there and had an interview, and they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. They doubled my salary at the Container Store and got bonuses. So I left and I worked with Macy's for a little over 5 years. In March of 2020, we were furloughed because of COVID.
Yep.
And then July 31st of 2020, I was laid off because they laid off 33,000 people. And God really tested my patience because I was worried. I mean, thank God, not to get political, but one of the best things Trump did was give that extra unemployment, because I never would have been able to afford my house payment on $300 a week unemployment.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And August 4th, Republic National Distributing Company called me and said, we want you as our facilities and loss prevention manager for Georgia. I was like, okay, God, you made me sweat for 4 days.
Yeah. Wow.
Things
So,
come quick.
Yeah, well, it was a long 4 days.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand that.
I've never been so scared in my life. And then, so I've been there since then, but last January of 2021, I got COVID and was in the hospital for 7 days. And I was never so scared and so sick in my life. I remember laying there in intensive care. They told me that I had COVID pneumonia. And I asked the doctor, I said, am I going to make it? And he said, I don't know. And I was like, huh? And he said, well, he said, you don't have any pre-existing conditions. You're fairly young and you're in good shape. He says, but COVID isn't what kills you. He said, it's the respiratory infection, which you've already got pneumonia.
Yep.
And he said, it's blood clotting that gives you, heart failure.
Yeah.
So he said, we're going to put you in intensive care. We're going to put you on oxygen. We're going to give you steroids, blood thinners, remdesivir. And I can't remember what else the other thing was. And we'll just see.
Mm-hmm.
And I was laying there that first night, just praying to God and my mom and dad saying, have it be your will that I can live. Da, da, da. And I think I fell asleep out of exhaustion. And then about 5 o'clock the next morning, they woke me up to take blood. The old, go to a hospital and be woke up every 5 hours.
Yep.
And then I went back to sleep. And about 10, the doctor came in and he said, well, he said, I'm seeing some improvement in your blood and your lungs. He says, but you got a long ways to go. And I was like, okay.